So when you think of Tom Starr, you think of the ADSL forum and all the great work you and your colleagues did to advance broadband. But while you were advancing broadband, you also had an idea, and you have published a series of books that really looked out into the future, and they're kind of scary concepts, because I think they're not really, they are science fiction, but they're, seems like science reality.
Yeah.
So Tom, as an engineer, what prompted you to become a novelist?
Yeah, well, I started off, I've done 3 technical books in the field of broadband access, and so that was sort of natural. If you had asked me 12 years ago, Tom, would you do, fiction novels? I would have said, no way, I'm an engineer, I wouldn't do this. And then one day, out of the blue, bolt of lightning figuratively hit me for the idea of a story related to where the hero sort of gets involved with artificial intelligence. And this idea of the story just excited me so much, and I thought, oh, this would be a fantastic story. It's got to be told, and well, nobody's going to tell that story unless I write it. So that sort of got me into this, sort of forced me to get into writing fiction, which I would have never thought of doing. And so here we end up with the story, Virtual Vengeance, and it's under the author name Thomas J.J. Starr, which I use on all my books. And I have 2 middle initials. And so very briefly, this is the story of a professor of computer science who discovers we're all being brainwashed by the gadgets we use. Not too far from the truth. Not too far from the truth. And so he discovers this and gets a hold of the bad guys that are doing this and say, oh, you got to stop this, not realizing that initially what that means. And so then later he realizes, oh, well, that means they're going to come out and murder him. And sure enough, to stop them, they murder him. And what they don't realize is that he foresaw this, and he created what is sort of an advanced form of artificial intelligence that comes back and takes vengeance on the murderer. So that's, in a nutshell, is the concept of this book. This is a self-published book. And on this one, unlike my others, I have 3 novels. This one I had an artist actually do the artwork on this. The others I did my own cover art.
From man to machine. I mean, that's a concept that I know I've reported on for a while, that whole idea of this merging, and it seems like you put it in kind of the fictional form.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the concept of singularity, this touches on this sort of man becoming a machine singularity concept. And I try to really develop that more than you see in other works. But in this case, it sort of relates to artificial intelligence, except for here the AI is the good guy, unlike most stories where AI is, the bad guy.
Interesting. And so that took you about a year or so, but you said, but what, you found another book in your mind, I guess. Tell us about the next one.
So in the process of doing this, I discovered, to my great surprise, that, hey, this was fun. And so the next book came up, and this one is Fatal Entanglement. And again, I did the cover art on this one. And so it hit me, firstly, I wanted a really strong female character. And so I kind of developed that. And so this very briefly is a story where the villains are intent on genetically re-engineering the human species in order to create world peace. Oh. Well, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Yeah. But of course, things don't go the way you might think. And so it turns out that's not such a great idea. And so actually on all 3 of my books, my advice to anyone who wants to write fiction or nonfiction is, my number 1 advice is get a good proofreader. You really need a proofreader, otherwise they're going to be just riddled with errors. And I'm very fortunate to have an excellent proofreader in my wife, who is very talented in doing this and also very thorough. And it takes an incredible amount of work doing the good proofreading. So I have to thank my wife for these books are just enormously higher quality. Thanks to her proofreading. Of course, that put a little slight strain on the marriage, but we got through it just fine. It worked out just fine. But I have to thank her for her work. So this one, one of the main characters is a genetically modified woman who has sort of an identity crisis throughout the book because she's trying to decide whether she's really human or not.
Oh my gosh.
And that's sort of interesting. And so we get into the whole question. I like sort of exploring some of these philosophical points of like, well, so what really decides what is a human and what is not? Where's the dividing line? Not so simple, all right? And as you get further and further into this, you find the dividing line of what really makes a human is not clear.
It becomes very difficult as you get brain implants and other things. But that led to did it lead to the third book?
Yeah. Well, the third book was a whole. So I guess I should. So this was a question. Sometimes people ask me of like, oh, are these part of a series that have the continuing characters? No, each book is totally independent. So here's book number 3, completely separate story, Retrograde, and this one came out a couple years ago, and this is a cyber war thriller that in which the internet, not just the internet, but also the cell phone networks, it all goes down. Everything totally. So where the internet is permanently destroyed, cell phones are permanently destroyed, and here we are, and it ain't pretty. So you see here a picture of the battleship Missouri, the World War II battleship, and when everything electronic stops working, that still kept working. And so the battleship Missouri is kind of, in some ways, a part of a hero of the book, because it's one of the few things that kept this old 1944 technology was still working, and one of the few things that was. So
interesting. So I guess a couple of questions. Are any other books in the works? Or?
I have got an idea for the next one, but it's going to be a while, probably a couple years off. It is still at very early stages. The way each writer has their own methods, and they all work, for different people. With me, I start with sort of the basic storyline at a high level, and then before I actually start writing, I take a lot of effort to create characters that'll be interesting and have friction between the characters and a lot of contrast, not just clones of each other. Some writers do that, but each character I try to make them very unique, and so I create my characters first, and then I kind of let the characters write the story.
That makes sense. Really a strong character-based approach to how you write now and how you create. And so my question is, do you see any movies in the offing?
Well, yeah, right. So I've had numerous people tell me, "Oh, Tom, I enjoyed reading the book, and this would be a great movie. You should make this a movie." And I'll go like, "Yeah, sure. I'll call up Steve Spielberg or George Lucas. I'll call him right up and tell him, No, I don't. I think
now in the world of ChatGPT and some tools like Runway ML and stuff, I wonder,
if we could just make it all through artificial intelligence. Well, that's the thought. Maybe.
You certainly have the material there.
Yeah. So I think all 3 of these actually could make, because they're all sort of action adventures.
Yeah, and very relevant to today's world.
Right. Very good.
Tom, thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you.